Now, at this time, I would like to introduce you to our speaker and host for today, Miss Tammi Croteau. Miss Croteau, we are honored that you are here with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesse, and thanks to all of you for being here today. I'm going to navigate this journey through a sometimes intimidating topic on public speaking for all of you, and I'll have a little help today from one of my teammates, Miss Tammi Croteau. She'll be monitoring the chat along with some help from our new branch chief, Bryce Olson, who is here on his very first seed session. So I'll take some pauses throughout my presentation, check in with Simone, and make sure we get to as many of your questions and comments as we can. And she and Bryce may also respond to or interact with some of you in the chat as well. You may notice today a lack of videos in our presentation. We have had some technical challenges lately that we're working on that have impacted our video playback speed, and we didn't want to detract from the presentation. So rather than using the videos, I am including links to them for you, and we'll talk through them as well. But you'll get a reference sheet full of links to great videos of some really powerful public speakers that you'll be able to watch following our presentation. And those, along with this presentation, will be available to you on our SharePoint site tomorrow. So public speaking has been a big part of my work for many, many years, but I wasn't always as happy about that as I am now. I spent 21 years in the Army National Guard, where I worked in personnel administration, public affairs, explosive ordnance disposal. Shout out to all my fellow veterans. Thank you for all that you do. And thank you for every one of you who do so much every day to show that you care for our veteran community. Really appreciate you. I've been with VBA for just over a year now, and in my previous agency, I worked for about 7 years on a lot of people programs, employee engagement training, leadership development, and I served as a personal and professional development coach. Here at VBA, in addition to working on our SEEDS program and teaching on-demand courses all over the country, I'm also the co-program manager of LEAD and ELP. And if any of you happen to tune into HCS Connect earlier this month, you'll also know that I am a writer. And my storytelling nature has been a great big help in this current role, and you'll understand why as we work through today's session. Time for a quick poll before we get started so I can learn a little bit about you. So I want to know how you feel about public speaking. And Jesse's going to put up a little poll for you to select from. Tell me if you love it, can do it if you have to, don't like it, or are completely terrified by it. And then just click submit once you've selected your answer, and we will see how our audience is today. Seeing the responses rolling in. Looks like a pretty good percentage of us are in the I can do it if I have to realm, with a few love it's and a few it's terrifying. I want to address the fear first. It's not an uncommon response. It looks like we're up to almost 25% of our audience really not being excited about public speaking, and that is totally understandable. But let's talk about where it comes from, why it's there, and what we can do to work through it. One of my instructors in explosive ordnance disposal school, who was teaching us all about diffusing bombs, which can really be scary, said that the difference between fear and respect is knowledge. So my goal today is to provide you with enough knowledge about public speaking to turn some of that natural fear that some of you may feel into a healthy respect for the art. So today, after our training, you should be able to describe the 5 steps that go into presentation design, identify challenges to effective oral communication, and identify some strategies and opportunities to improve your public speaking skills. Sun Tzu wrote in his book, The Art of War, that if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you won't need to fear the results of 100 battles. We know that self-awareness and social awareness are also key components to emotional intelligence, and those are skills that can set you up for success in the modern day work world as well. In the public speaking arena, we're going to learn how understanding our audience and their needs and becoming more aware of our own tendencies and habits can also empower us to go into each speaking opportunity confident and ready to make the best of it. The fear of public speaking is so universal that even Jerry Seinfeld has done a monologue about it. That video is one of the ones I've included in your references slide in the sheet that you'll receive after the training. But the main point is included here. According to most studies, people's #1 fear is public speaking. #2 is death. Does that sound right? This means that to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you would prefer to be in the casket than doing the eulogy. Now, that might be a little extreme, and eulogies are without a doubt one of the most difficult public speaking phases to ever have to face. But Seinfeld does make a valid point that we need to discuss. So we're going to face the fear right now and get it out of the way. It's probably going to be hard to believe since my current job is all about talking to big groups of people every day, and I really do enjoy it now. But I once suffered from glossophobia, or fear of public speaking. Glossophobia comes from the Greek words for tongue and fear or dread. Keep that definition in mind as we go through the session, and remember that the tongue is powerful, but it's yours to control. So I've always loved learning, and I started taking college classes during my junior year in high school at a local community college. I had enough credit so that I could have graduated right after I graduated from high school, but there was a public speaking requirement, and I was terrified. So I delayed and I delayed, and I waited until there was literally no one left in that school who could possibly have known me before I finally registered for it 5 years after my high school graduation. And I hated it. I hated that class. Even the thought of having to do a speech for a grade in front of people made my mouth dry up. My heart raced. I'd get sweaty. I'd get shaky. I was pretty convinced I was going to pass out before it was all over. And I wasn't the only one like that, of course. During our breaks, everybody would get together and just talk about how nervous we were. So the instructor was fantastic, and she gave us a lot of freedom in choosing the topic for our first presentation. And one of the choices was to do a demonstration of something we enjoyed. Well, I'd been a color guard flag corps captain forever in high school, and I really loved designing choreography. And I also knew that I could burn 30 seconds of my required time by showing off a routine and not actually speaking. So that's what I chose to do. I wrote out a speech about the process that I went through to choreograph a short routine to an 80s pop song using the presentation format that I'm about to share with you. And I rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed until it was memorized. Of course, I used note cards anyway because I was terrified. When speech day came, I realized how amazing it was that no one really knew me. That also meant they didn't know whether or not I was any good at public speaking, and they didn't have any expectations. So the only expectations I was up against were my own. So I decided to go into it faking it, pretending I was confident. I threw on a smile and I volunteered to go first. And it wasn't perfect and it was nerve-wracking, but I survived and I learned and I got some great feedback. It was positive and encouraging and even really helpful. So sometimes we have to give ourselves opportunities to be heard and seen, to face our fears in order to really grow and develop. The best coach that I ever worked with, not a coach like me, but a coach at Orange Theory Fitness, always used to tell us as we were panting and sweating on the treadmills, you've survived 100% of the hard things that you've ever been through. You have a track record for success. So let's continue to build on that. And that's what we're going to do. With some preparation, you can succeed at public speaking too. So as Oprah is explaining to us here, what is this thing that really causes so much anxiety? Public speaking is nothing more than an organized, face-to-face, prepared, intentional, purposeful attempt to persuade a group of 5 or more through words, physical delivery, and at times visual or audio aids. Of all those words in that definition, it's usually the face-to-face and group parts that intimidate us the most, even in this virtual setting where we have computer screens separating us. But it's all those words that are in bold that are actually the important ones. And we're going to focus on the behind the scenes parts of public speaking first, because that's where you can really build your confidence. 2 scholars of public speaking from the early 20th century, Edwin Dubois Schroeder and James Albert Winans, describe public speaking as an enlarged conversation. It's not quite as simple as one of those casual talks you'd have with a friend, and it's not quite as complex as a theatrical performance. But the most powerful public speakers somehow leave you feeling like it's been a little bit of both. And I'll refer to Oprah again for that. If you've seen Oprah, you know what I'm talking about. Like a conversation, public speaking involves being aware of and sensitive to your audience, and tying back to emotional intelligence. That's our social awareness and our self-management. It's about exchanging ideas, facts, ideas, or information, just like we're doing now. It's about developing relationships, building trust, demonstrating respect. And relationship management, of course, is another one of those components of emotional intelligence that are so important. You're dependent on feedback to know if you're being understood. And usually it's the nonverbal feedback, the body language that we look for in public speaking to tell us if we're resonating with our audiences. We're a little bit limited in our seed settings where I don't have several hundred folks on camera to be able to, see. So I have to judge from your feedback in the chat at sometimes too. Public speaking is also face-to-face communication. Though in our digital age and coupled with the global pandemic, we've seen an increase in the number of virtual public speaking events, but still, this is considered face-to-face, live speaking. Public speaking has to be bigger or more projected than a regular conversation. Louder, more fluid, more energetic, depending upon the size and type of the venue that you're presenting in. And you may be more conscious of the correctness and formality of your language. Some of the more casual expressions you'd use in conversations with your friends probably wouldn't be as appropriate in front of a large audience in certain situations. But like a performance, you might prepare by writing out a script, rehearsing and even memorizing your lines, practicing your gestures and your facial expressions, but focusing too much on the performance side takes away from your authenticity. Amy Edmondson is the leading expert in psychological safety. We've heard a lot about that this year, and some of you may have sat in on some of our training on that subject as well. Amy presented a mini masterclass for the Harvard Business Review's Leaders Who Make a Difference webinar last year that I was able to attend, and it brought up some really interesting points that are applicable here. She said that human nature is the biggest threat to psychological safety because we have an inherent fear of speaking up, particularly in the workplace, because there's a hierarchy that we place so much value on. It's our own nature that challenges our ability to be powerful public speakers because we don't feel safe. And we don't always believe that what we have to say will have a positive impact or will make a difference, or maybe will even be valued or received the way that we intended. So Amy Edmondson said that we often believe that the cost of speaking up could be so detrimental to our self-worth or our reputation or even our careers. Yet we see the cost of remaining silent as nothing, zero. So we choose the silence because it's safer. So she challenged us to reverse that cost perception and our leaders to set the stage for that to happen by promoting psychological safety and trust within our teams. In a psychologically safe environment, people feel safer speaking up. Differing opinions are welcomed. You can take risks. It's even okay to fail because you'll be learning together. When you find yourself on a psychologically safe team, that's where you want to practice your public speaking. Scholars at the University of Wisconsin published an article titled Public Speaking Anxiety in 2015 that explains some of the ways we sabotage our success with our own thinking patterns. Identifying your own little gremlins can help you to overcome them. And this is something that we work on quite a bit in coaching. And there's also a link to on your resources page to a site called positiveintelligence.com, where you can take a little quiz that will help you identify your own gremlins and get to know yourself a little more. So one of the ways that we tend to think is called all or nothing thinking. That's the perfectionist in us that says, if it's not perfect, it's a total failure. Constant perfection is unrealistic and unattainable, but I know I felt the need to strive for it again and again and felt that pain when I missed the mark. But it didn't keep me from trying again and seeing the positive in the experience, even if it was less than perfect. Overgeneralization is another. This is the belief that this is the way things will always be. If I had one bad experience where I tripped over my tongue or said something awful during a presentation and totally embarrassed myself, I know it's going to happen this way every time. It's overgeneralization. You can think of this fear as an acronym, false evidence appearing real. When we think this way, overgeneralizing, we start to contribute to the possibility of that negative outcome actually happening. But this belief is not true. Fortune telling is the tendency to anticipate that things will turn out badly no matter how well we prepare. This negativity has a way of being easier to believe, so sometimes we just let it win and we play into it, but we do have the power to change how we think. So tell me, do any of these resonate with you? And what other thought patterns might have gotten in your way? You can type some answers in the chat and we'll talk through those. And where you can check your own gremlins and things, that was positiveintelligence.com. I've got that in your references for you. Self-fulfilling prophecies, absolutely. Yeah, the fear of failure and rejection, they're really valid, but we can build our confidence by learning how to approach this public speaking task. And this is what we're going to do now. A 2019 Princeton Correspondence on Undergraduate Research blog said about preparing a presentation that more is more in terms of the work that you need to do in these steps behind the scenes, and less is more in terms of the number of slides and the amount of stuff that you should include in your finished product. We've all seen those presentations that are just so big and long and full, you'll never get through them all. We don't need that. We're going to do more behind the scenes. These behind-the-scenes steps to preparing a presentation are the parts that can really help you to build your knowledge and your confidence. Selecting your topic, selecting your purpose, analyzing your audience, researching your topic, and organizing your ideas. And we're going to look at each one of these a little more closely. So if you're putting together a presentation here at work, it's likely that you probably already have an idea of what the topic is supposed to be. Maybe it's been assigned to you, but maybe you went out on a limb and decided to volunteer to speak at a Lunch and Learn or HCS Connect or some other session like that, where you get to present about a hobby or an interest that you're passionate about. Either way, the more you can narrow the topic and give it a specific focus, the easier it'll be to move on to other steps. If your topic's not clear to you, if it's a jumble of thoughts like our employee in this visual, that's exactly how it's going to come across to your audience. Let's say, for example, that I was going to present about my interest in travel, and that is a very vast topic. I could go in any number of directions with it, pun intended. But if I wanted to make the topic more specific, I could narrow it to a specific region I visited and maybe talk about how to handle a medical emergency when you're in a foreign country, since I had that crazy experience when I was in the Dominican Republic earlier this year. Or I could talk about things I learned as a solo female traveler visiting Costa Rica for the first time. Or maybe how to prepare for running a marathon in Sicily, or how to survive a cross-country road trip with 6 cats and a dog. My travel stories are endless. And the possibilities are endless with any topic. So it's really easy to get sidetracked if you don't decide up front how to limit your topic and focus your presentation. Steps 1 and 2 can sometimes go hand in hand. It's important to know why you're presenting the topic you've chosen as well. Ralph C. Smedley is the founder of the international speaking organization Toastmasters, and he said that a speech without a specific purpose is like a journey without a destination. So we need to know where we're taking our audience to make sure we actually get them there. Generally, we have a few common purposes in public speaking: to inform, to persuade, to entertain, or to motivate or inspire. Sometimes we need to combine a few of these, and maybe even all of them, to achieve the goal of our presentation. To figure out your purpose, you can ask yourself, why should the audience listen to me? At the end of the presentation, what do I want or need them to do? What's my desired result? My purpose today is mostly to inform you about public speaking techniques and tools to help you become more powerful in your speaking. And we have 3 specific learning objectives that serve as our destination. I always like to add in a little entertainment, since we're usually pretty close to the lunch hour in some of our time zones, and that helps to keep you awake and engaged in our journey. And I also might need to be a little bit persuasive to convince some of you to try some of the strategies I'm suggesting, especially if public speaking is way outside your comfort zone. And if I can manage somehow to motivate or inspire you, maybe with the help of some of the words of wisdom from some well-known, powerful public speakers, then I'll be even happier with today's journey, and you probably will be too. To find your perfect purpose balance, though, you also need to know your audience. So when you're learning about your audience, here are some things to consider if you can. What do they need and what do they want? Those might not necessarily be the same thing. What do they expect of a speaker? What have they seen before? What's worked and what hasn't for them? What's their existing knowledge base on your topic? If I was presenting this to Simon Sinek and Oprah Winfrey, I probably wouldn't, but I would definitely be speaking differently than I would to maybe a group of college students who are preparing to present their very first presentation. So you have to look at expectations and knowledge base. Will you be presenting virtually or in person? What's the size of the group? What kind of technology will be used? I noticed some chat about microphones in the chat, and absolutely, what is the venue? What is the size? What do you have to use? How well will you be heard? It won't matter what you say if no one can hear you. Absolutely. Also think about the audience. Are they participating voluntarily or is this required? The amount of engagement that you get may differ based on whether or not they're choosing to be present for your presentation. And group dynamics. This can be tricky, but if you can find out if there's anything else going on within the group that may be impacting anyone's ability to focus or engage, that can be helpful to know as well. Or if there were any problems that led to the training needing to happen or the presentation. Communication and leadership styles. If you can find out the DISC or Myers-Briggs types of any key stakeholders or decision makers, particularly if you're doing a persuasive presentation, that can really help you to navigate that discussion better. And accessibility and inclusion topics. Do any of your audience members require any accommodations to make your presentation more accessible to them, like hearing or visual impairments? Always consider those things and do everything you can to make your presentations inclusive and compliant. So how do you learn about an audience if you don't already know them, if you're presenting to an external group that you've never met before or worked with? Observation is great. See if you can sit in on a meeting with that group before you present to them, just to observe and see the dynamics. Ask questions. Find a point of contact within the group. Make a list of questions that will help you to get the information you need. Find someone who can help you answer them. Here in our agency and others, surveys like the All Employee Survey, the AES, can give you some insight into group dynamics or maybe challenges that the group may be facing, what they're satisfied with and not, but those are just a snapshot in time. And if you're not able to do any advanced observation or learning about your audience, you can also gather information quickly at the very start of your presentation if you need to, with a simple poll like we did, just asking, how do you feel about public speaking? How do they feel about the topic? What do they know about the topic? And then you can, if you're able to, adjust on the fly. You may need to provide some additional information in certain realms if they're not as familiar with your topic or as comfortable with it, or maybe eliminate some if they've got a lot of pre-existing knowledge. Every presentation you do will be different because each unique audience analysis will have different results. But knowing who you're presenting to helps you know how to prepare. The way that I would prepare a session like this one for a 50-minute virtual audience of hundreds of employees all over VBA is pretty different from how I would go about it if I were presenting an in-person briefing to a member of the senior executive service, for example. In the case of our SEEDS classes, we may not know who each of you are individually and where your career fields may be, what grades you may be, but we know from past sessions that you typically represent a really wide array of career fields, grade levels, geographic areas, and demographics. We do know that we'll have usually a relatively large and totally virtual and voluntary audience. And we know some of the key concerns and issues that impact VBA employees currently, both from our own experience and through the AES data. So we can tailor our courses in a more broad way to address the organization as a whole. If I was briefing an SESer, I would definitely want to talk with their assistant or staff to find out about their preferred communication and presentation styles. Do they like bullet points or bottom line up front? Would they rather see charts and graphs or read a narrative report? If I could provide that in advance with a list of references, what's their preference? The better I can tailor that briefing to fit the style of that executive, the better chance I have at coming across as a clear and effective communicator, making the best use of their time, getting their buy-in, and achieving my purpose. After you're done with your research on your audience, then we move into research on your topic. Simone, is there anything in the chat that we need to check in on before we move ahead?
I think we're so far so good. Bryce brought up an interesting fact that there's research, that shows people learn better with mic cues, going back to that topic really quick. So someone suggested finding that research specifically to add to our resources. So we'll definitely check into that.
I love it. And we're just right here in research now. So this is the perfect time to discuss that. So scholarly research and current relevant data, as we're finding out, will strengthen your case and your credibility. Data analysis is a science, but data presentation has an art to it. So always examine your references carefully and think critically about how to use those resources best. What's going to make an impact with your audience? In any organization where data-driven decision-making is part of the culture, Wikipedia probably is not your best bet. Probably not just your unsupported personal beliefs either. Your primary sources are people, your subject matter experts. Start with them, but then look for secondary sources like books or articles that have additional support as well. Google gets you lots of options, but Google Scholar gets you peer-reviewed professional journals that you'd find in academic libraries. You can search for specific topics, filter by publication dates to find the most current research in just about any field. And we know the world has changed a lot post-pandemic. So if you're presenting comparative data, you want to recognize that things from 2018 to 2020 to 2022 are going to vary for some bigger picture reasons. And that requires some critical thinking. So it's important to present data from multiple perspectives. Try also to avoid confirmation bias or only looking for references that support what you already believe or want to prove. Challenge yourself to examine other ideas that may even contradict your own. Presenting from multiple perspectives helps you to prevent alienating segments of your audience and makes you more credible. All right, you've got a refined topic. You know why you're presenting, you know who you're presenting to and communicating with. You've got solid research to back up your key points. Now what? Now you've got to put the puzzle pieces together logically in a way that will have the best impact on your audience. You will likely have a very busy audience with limited time. I'm sure we can all relate to that feeling. The law of primacy says that people are going to remember the first thing that they hear or see. So what you present first might matter most. Have an elevator speech ready, that bottom line upfront statement of intent in your introduction to let them know why you're there and why they should listen. When you outline your presentation, think about that desired outcome. That's the destination at the end. Every key point and every supporting detail that you present in the body of your presentation should be like a stepping stone on a path to help you and your audience get to that destination. What's it going to take to get their buy-in? If you need graphs or charts or videos or polls within your presentation, where would they work best to keep the momentum going? Plan your transitions. These are like bridges that connect your main ideas. Short summaries can work well as transitions in a longer presentation, reminding folks what you've already told them and cluing them into what you're going to tell them next. And then a wrap-up or summary at the end helps to bring everything together and keep it fresh in their minds. Because, like the law of primacy, the law of recency says that people will remember the last or most recent thing that they heard. So leave them with a restatement of your key points or remind them of their next steps or actions to take when you close out your speech. I know everybody knows this space. We've talked about preparing. Now we're going to talk about the actual delivery of your speech. And Simon Sinek is a master of the TED Talk. I love watching his videos on public speaking, and I've included a link to one of them in your references, in which he and several other powerful public speakers talked about captivating your audience. And I'm going to talk about a few things that he shared in some of those videos. When people ask Simon Sinek how to become a great speaker, he says he cheats, because he only talks about things that he cares deeply about and things he understands. He also says that you have to show up with an attitude of giving. Leave your audience with a gift. Don't make them feel like you're trying to get something or take something from them. The presentation should feel like you're giving them something, not like a sales pitch, even if it is one. How do you do that? That's the tricky part. You have to use a passion that people can feel. You may be able to generate what appears to be energy, even if you aren't feeling that. A little extra caffeine, vocal inflection, jumping around the room if you're in person. But passion and energy are two different things. Energy can be seen and heard, but passion can be felt. You have to find a way to connect emotionally with something in your topic to make it authentic. Simon provides several other strategies that I'm going to detail for you now. So what's the best way to make sure you'll do your best when it's time to speak? Practice. It's that simple. Practice, practice, practice. But don't just read through your script silently. So many people do that, and it is never the same as actually really rehearsing. Simon Sinek and other powerful public speakers agree that these strategies will help you to be successful. Always be prepared. Go through those 5 steps that we talked about earlier in preparing your presentation. More is more behind the scenes. Spend your time there, building up your knowledge and your confidence before even going into your presentation. Practice the way you'll perform. This one is so important. Use all the technology, all the visual aids, wear the clothes that you plan to wear on the day of the presentation. There is nothing worse than realizing too late that your jacket's too tight or too hot, or your video links don't work right in the middle of a presentation. And always practice the contingencies. Have contingencies and practice them, because even when you do test those video links and they work perfectly just before your presentation, I promise there will come a time when that won't happen. For instance, if you were in our last seed session, you might remember that we had a minor computer crash that took our presentation offline for just a few seconds. The reason that disruption was so absolutely minimal was because our team had anticipated that something like that could happen, and we'd walked through what we would do if it did. That kept us from being caught off guard, and we were already ready to just keep the session going. Take every opportunity to speak. Opportunities are there. You just have to grab them. Volunteer for that lunch and learn presentation. Tell people all about your Star Wars Lego hobby or whatever it may be. Join your local Toastmasters. I've got a link to the Toastmasters website and also a video of a Toastmasters champion speaker in the reference sheet for you as well. Start an interest group or a club, or just practice speaking up in meetings as a start. Ask for and give feedback. Do live run-throughs for your peers. That's so hard sometimes, or for your supervisors or your mentors, and invite their feedback. In a 2021 article about peer feedback on presentation skills, university professors wrote that the practice of providing feedback among peers is beneficial not only for those receiving the feedback, but for those giving it. So it's a win-win for improving communication all around. And again, that psychological safety doesn't hurt in that situation. Other people can point out things that you may not even notice about your pace, your tone, the way you've organized your speech. They'll have questions about things that totally made sense to you. They'll let you know what resonates and what falls flat. They're going to make you better. I know this because we do this in learning and development. Every time we come up with a new class, we present for each other. And I was horrified by this the very first time we had to do it, but the feedback was incredible, and learning how to, make one another better at what we did was really, really valuable. And watch the people who are better than you. Go ahead and type in the chat. Who are some of your favorite public speakers? I know some of you mentioned Simon Sinek was one of them. Who else do you really enjoy watching and listening to? And what is it that draws you to them? I'm seeing lots about the safe spaces. Michelle and Barack Obama. Absolutely. Jordan Peterson. Oh, I'm not familiar with Jordan Peterson. I'll have to. Joyce Myers. I always learn as much from my participants as you do from me in these things. So I'm going to have to look some of these up as well. Excellent. Gail King. I'll add these to my list. Sean Ricks. Brene Brown, T.D. Jakes, Zig Ziglar. You've got the good ones. All right. Oh, I see some. Simone, go ahead and give me a wrap up what I've missed. We'll take a little pause right here. I'm getting a whole lot of good things in the chat. Make sure I don't miss anything.
Yeah, so it looks like so far just a lot of really great public speakers are coming to everyone's mind. And we did have someone ask, another tip and trick type of question of, can you speak to how people with a speech or articulation impediment can try to improve their presentations? And we did have a response to that, but if you have any additional feedback, we would love to hear it.
No, I would love to hear what someone who actually has that experience has to say about it as well. But again, I would say that having that safe space to practice would probably be a great start. And maybe making folks aware, if you're comfortable enough to be vulnerable enough to do that, to just explain your situation and let people know so that they're not caught off guard. Maybe that would probably be part of your own preference in terms of what you're willing to share. Lolita, you're wonderful, very open about it, and it makes it better. Okay, well, if I could get you on mic to talk about that, that would be great. It's always good to look into those other situations as well. It's already scary to have to speak in public, but if you've got any other challenges that might make it even harder or might give you other reasons to worry about the presentation, then these are great things to learn about with each other. Thank you for sharing that. Finding it important to own your challenges. I like that too, Michael. This is a great group. All right. So we talked about a whole lot of great public speakers and some that I have to go look up now to make sure that I'm not missing out on any good ones. And again, we're learning from each other here as we go along, which I love. So as you're watching those speakers that really, really resonate with you, dig in, consider that study. Think about what it is about them that pulls you in and take some notes. What could you emulate in your own performance to do like they're doing? How do they vary their pace or tone? Maybe it's their word choice. What types of facial expressions or body language do they use? Do they use visual aids? How do things flow? If you were giving them feedback, What specific things would you comment on that they were doing well? And what would you suggest they do differently if they were presenting to your team? Those are some good challenges to think about. Last one, Simon Sinek said that the reason he keeps getting invited back to speak again was because he could communicate ideas clearly. That also comes from preparation, those behind the scenes steps, having that focused topic and specific purpose, tailoring the message to fit the audience, and providing them with relevant and impactful information in a logical way that they can connect with. Now we're back to Oprah. Oprah Winfrey is another powerful public speaker who can really make her passion come across. She can command a room of any size. And I got to see her in Dallas a few years ago. And she had this way of making you feel like you were sitting on her front porch, sipping lemonade and talking one-on-one with her, even though you were surrounded by 40,000 people in an arena. Forbes magazine said that Oprah's 2016 Golden Globe acceptance speech was a masterclass in public speaking. She crafted a speech that had 6 important elements. She started with a story. She was personal and vulnerable. She gave credit to others. She talked about what was important. She kept it short, and she cast a vision. So if you follow Oprah's formula, your story that you choose to share, kind of like mine about my first public speaking class, should illustrate your topic and promote your purpose and be one that your audience could connect with. How personal and vulnerable you choose to be depends upon your own comfort zone, of course, the safety of the group you're with, what's relevant really to you. Dr. Lee, our leader of human capital services, told us once that you get to choose what you give of yourself to your audience, but once you give it, it's out there. So make sure you decide in advance what you're willing to share and what you're willing to give. I'm almost always willing to share, especially here, about being a veteran, because it really helps me to connect with other veterans and people who appreciate the mission of serving the veteran community. That might not always work as well with other groups, so it's a strategic choice that I've made here. Giving credit to others. Just like the way we cite our sources in research, we know that we're not in this alone, and rarely can I ever get through a class or a presentation without Simone and Bryce today, for instance, helping in the chat, or Jesse managing the technology. There's so much that goes into a presentation that is more than we could do alone. Talking about what's important and keeping it short. That's giving the bottom line up front, having your key points and staying on track with solid preparation. Time is one of our most valuable commodities. We can show respect to our audience simply by honoring timelines with our presentations. We're going to wrap up today in 50 minutes or less, because that's what we promised you at Seeds, and we tend to stick to that. And cast a vision. This is where you can tie your points into maybe the strategic objectives of your organization, provide a call to action, show people how they're contributing to the bigger picture. That's where the motivation and inspiration come into play that are really going to make your speech memorable and maybe even help you to accomplish your purpose. So in addition to watching and listening to the people that we know are excellent, powerful public speakers, I'm going to throw out a challenge that's going to feel kind of cringy, and I'm going to ask you to watch and listen to recordings of yourself too. I'm right there with those of you that are like, oh, that's uncomfortable, I want to do that. I didn't like it at all either. It can be the most awkward and uncomfortable experience, but it really is a great way to get over some of your discomfort and to become more self-aware as a speaker. If you can get transcriptions of your speeches, you can actually see what's coming out of your mouth. When I was going through my federal internal coach training program, we had to record our coaching sessions with permission from our clients, of course, to check the percentage of time that we spent asking questions versus speaking, to make sure that the questions we asked were open-ended and powerful. And we had several services that we used to do that. Some of them are paid, like Transcription Puppy. That gives you a word-for-word copy of every and ah that comes out of your mouth. Minimal cost, but about a 24-hour turnaround on that one. But there's a transcription function right here in Teams that's totally free and immediate. You can just turn it on and see every word fairly accurately. It's important to be aware of your go-to filler words. We all have them. Mine is so, and I hear myself saying that every now and then in between phrases. Gotta listen for those, gotta be aware of them. They're part of your subconscious vocabulary, and until you become aware of them, they're gonna pop up all the time, and they can get in the way of your purpose and be distractors. The best way to fight the filler words, believe it or not, is simply with silence. Just pause, take a breath. Taking a breath can also serve a double purpose because it can help to calm your nerves, slow your pace too, if you happen to be someone like me whose tendency is to speed up when you get a little excited or nervous. When I was an intern teacher, my cooperating teacher had come in to do an observation of me, and on my evaluation, before I even started my class, had already written slow down. So he was more aware of me than I was of me at that point. If you're reading from a script or from note cards, you can even write in when to pause or breathe or put spaces between your phrases to make it obvious that you need to take some time there. Give yourself visuals if you're a visual learner. Simon Sinek talked about speaking about things that we care about and how you can't fake the passion. Self-awareness can also help you when you're given a topic that you don't really have a lot of interest in. A former supervisor of mine asked me in one of my first interviews with her what she could do to motivate me for projects that I might not find too exciting. We were a property management division, and I was very much a people person, big surprise, who had little to no technical expertise in the field of property management, but I did love to learn, and I wanted her to know that I was always open to stretch assignments in other areas. So I thought about that question, and I told her that I really like to help people. And if you've taken our DISC class, the DISC assessment, yes, I usually score pretty high in the S realms. I said if she could find a way to let me know how I'd be helping someone by doing these not so interesting assignments, that would be more than enough to motivate me. And this is how self-awareness can help you to find something to care about, even in the topics that you might not initially connect with or feel passionate about. For me, talking about issues with the elevators in our federal buildings didn't initially make me want to jump around on stage for hours with excitement. But when I realized that people were being trapped inside these elevators for hours at a time sometimes, and we needed to find a solution to that problem, that I could find some passion to speak about. And then there's failure. That's never our favorite word to hear. And it brings us back to one of many people's biggest fears, but you can't let that fear get the best of you. Remember what my favorite coach said at Orange Theory: each one of you has survived 100% of the toughest days and things you've ever been through. You have a track record for success, so keep building on that. Don't focus on the fails. You will more than likely not think your presentations are perfect or good enough. You'll probably notice and count every filler word, every time you trip over your tongue, every pause that feels too long, every time you talk too fast, and you're going to overthink it, and that's totally natural. We are rarely ever satisfied with our performance. But pause and take a breath. Learn from it, let it go, and do better next time. That's failing forward, and that's growth. Growth never happens where we're comfortable, right? It's about building your knowledge base and building your confidence if you let it. And again, if you're in that psychologically safe environment, that feels even easier. And believe it or not, most people in your audience will probably not have noticed anywhere near as many of the challenges and imperfections as you did with your presentation. All right, before we are almost nearing the end, Simone, where are we with the chat? Is there anything there we want to address?
No, it looks like we did receive a resource though from Mr. Duncan that looks like is a really good public speaking coaching tool that he's found helpful. So thank you, Michael, for sharing that.
We can maybe add that to our resources sheet too. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Excellent. All right, so one last big deep breath. We're almost to the end of our journey, and we're going to wrap up in the interest of the law of recency with a review of our learning objectives for today's session. We talked about those 5 steps of presentation design. More is more behind the scenes, preparing your presentation. This is where you want to spend the most of your time, choosing your topic and your purpose, analyzing your audience, conducting research into your topic, and organizing your thoughts. That's where your knowledge and confidence will really be built up before you even set foot in front of your audience. We talked about the challenges that can stand in the way of our ability to be effective public speakers. Those self-sabotaging thoughts or little gremlins, the lack of trust or psychological safety that may be there, just the fear itself and human nature. And we talked a lot about strategies for overcoming those obstacles and becoming a powerful public speaker yourself. Techniques like watching other powerful public speakers, like some of the ones you mentioned in the chats, incorporating stories and being vulnerable, like Oprah Winfrey suggested, and increasing your self-awareness by asking for feedback and reviewing recordings and transcripts of your own presentations. So What's one thing you might be willing to commit to trying as you're working on improving your own public speaking? Go ahead and give us some answers in the chat, things that you're going to try. Or maybe other things that we didn't talk about that you can share with all of us. Watch recordings of yourself. Excellent. I think that is the biggest help, and it's a little painful at first, but you'll get used to it. Rehearse in front of a mirror. Absolutely. That can be just as good as a recording because you're seeing it live. Ah, another so-sayer like me. Right. Work on the transitions. Yes. Peer review. Get to know your audience. All good things. Excellent. Thank you all. Yes, PowerPoint has an excellent coach when we, oh, okay, great. That's another one we need to look at. Smile and don't be so serious. Oh, always. And even if you're not speaking on camera, do you know that you can hear if someone is smiling or not? I have practiced that, and I've tried not to smile as much and see if people hear a difference in me, and they tell me they can, but it's really hard for me not to smile. Presentation with your peers. Absolutely. And if you're the first one to do that, the first one to ask for feedback, you might start a whole new culture shift in your organization just by making that something safe for people to do. Love it. All right, next slide. So as I mentioned, I've got some resources along with the ones that you all presented for us as well. Some of the videos that we referenced and some additional things, the little quizzes that we talked about. And we put this together. They're not only in the slides, but also on a separate document that we'll be sharing with you later on our SharePoint site and via email once I get the roster of those who attended. And we'll continue to add to that. Each time we do this, we learn more. And again, Jesse had mentioned that we love your feedback. We always ask for it, and we always take it very seriously. So there is a link in the chat or a code that you can scan if you have a government phone right there on the screen. And it's just a few short multiple choice questions and then an opportunity for you to give us any other feedback that you may have. And we would greatly appreciate that. It helps us to keep improving upon our training offerings and doing the best we can to meet your needs. And if there are any other questions or anything else, you are always welcome to type those in the chat, or feel free to contact me via email or chat later on as well. And I have really enjoyed working with all of you today, and I hope you found some helpful pieces of knowledge to take away. And no matter what you hold on to from this session, I hope you will leave feeling a little more confident and more aware of the value of your voice and your ability to become a powerful public speaker. Thank you so much.